Okay. Good afternoon. I'll call this regular quarterly meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Cable and Telecommunications Commission to order at 3:38 on Thursday, April 21st, 2016. Jake, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Folk?
Present.
Commissioner Foster?
Present.
Commissioner Rosales?
Here.
Commissioner Cinder?
Here.
Commissioner Wadsworth?
Present.
Commissioner Walker is absent, and our new Commissioner Panumpabi is absent as well.
Thanks, Jake. Are there any modifications to the agenda? I'm embarrassed to say that while I sent out our version of an annual report, I failed to include it on our agenda for discussion, and so I would suggest we insert it under unfinished business, as it's well due. So if some would...
I'll move, move to make that change, adding it.
Is everyone in agreement? Signify by aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our agenda is approved. Next come the minutes, which Peter has provided us with the actual transcript of our meetings of January 21, 2016, and November 5, 2015. Is there any discussion or corrections?
In
Peter?
one of them, Chair Cinder's name is spelled with a C. Other than that, I did not notice any omissions.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I accept that misspelling.
Okay.
I happened to notice on page 27 that it was brought to the attention that I was not in attendance for reasons that were, maybe for doing extra work. But I saw that you also made a statement that that would go in alphabetical order, so I'm delighted to hear that.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes for January 21 and November 5 are approved. We still have outstanding the minutes for October 15, 2015. Would anyone like to take that on as a volunteer basis?
I can do it while I do these if you want. Do the ones from this meeting.
Asking you to take on two, I think, is going above and beyond, but I was absent for that meeting, so.
Okay.
I'll back up Chris if he's running into difficulty with that. All right.
Okay, I appreciate
All right,
that.
Chris, let me know.
Okay.
Okay. Correspondence, Jake. Do we have any correspondence?
I included with your documents an email that was sent by Chris Lukeman in which he announces his resignation from this board in conjunction with his resignation from University of Illinois.
Yes. How long has Chris been a member of the board? He's been here as long as I've been on the commission.
He says 4.5 years.
4.5. Okay.
He came on shortly after I came on.
Yeah, I've been here for 4.25 now, I think. So.
I think Commissioner Walker is our senior, or maybe
Senior
who's
member.
ours.
Okay.
You've been on quite a while. if I
I
recall.
can't remember when I got
That's
on.
how long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way
Okay.
back with Rick Atterbury was here.
Well, we greatly appreciate Commissioner Lookman's service. No other correspondence, Jake? Okay. Moving on then to staff reports.
I can tell you two exciting things about UPTV in the past quarter. We were once again the recipient of 3 awards from the Midwest, the Best of the Midwest Media Fest and awards. Our volunteer producer and intern Jacob Barnard was awarded for the second straight year, this time for his work producing the music series Friday Night Live, along with camera operator Henry Radcliffe III. Jason Liggett, our production coordinator, was recognized with an achievement award for his feature story on the Sim Hackberry tree in Urbana. And UPTV is also being recognized for our work with the Urbana Middle School students through the Park District's SPLASH program. And Jason will be attending the Regional Alliance for Community Media conference in Wisconsin, I believe next weekend, to accept those awards on our behalf. And in addition, I'm pleased that within the past half hour, we have now gone live on ITV3. We can be seen on Channel 6 there, as well as on Comcast Channel 6 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99, and on the web at urbanapublictelevision.org.
And so the commission has the privilege of being the first full event to be broadcast.
This is correct, just much like Doctor Who.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Operator reports. I see Chris, do you have anything to report from Parkland?
Guess a couple things. We just wrapped up production on our annual Parkland Challenge, which is our 16 high school quiz bowl tournament that we do every year. We just finished taping yesterday, so those will be edited up and be ready to air in May, hopefully, because as I mentioned last meeting, we're in transition because our playback system went down, but we have a new system in, and it's in-house, and it's currently being installed and hopefully to be configured with Tightrope next week. So hopefully, as of May, we'll be back up and running. We're running satellite programming currently, but we've been unable to run any local content during this time. So hopefully in May, we'll be back up and running, and Parkland Challenge will be one of the things that we'll be showing when we come back.
Thank you.
I'll comment on that. I've watched that a couple years ago, and it's good TV. It's very good TV. So a lot of fun.
And yeah, 16 high schools, like I said, from the area, but these kids know a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff. So it's pretty
fun.
impressive.
Yeah.
I used to coach it, and it was an awful lot of fun then, but I watched it too recently, and gotta say, yeah, it's remarkable. It makes you kind of wonder where all our stuff we learned went, but...
Commissioner, I should also mention that Janet Ahern let us know she would not be here representing CGTV.
Yes, she has another event to prepare for this evening. I see Chris Warwick here from AT&T. I don't know if he has anything for us or not.
Anything to report this time around.
Okay, thank you.
I won't be at the next meeting. I'll actually be in Florida.
Okay, enjoy your time.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, we will move on to UC2B, ITV3 proposed sale report. We have with us today Dr. John Gant and Charlie Smythe from the UC2B board. Is Mr. Racklin going to be able to make it today?
Yeah, thanks. I just talked with Mr. Racklin a few minutes ago, and he called me to make sure to express to you that he really wanted to be here, but he's not able to make it, so he sent his regrets as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, he indicated early in the week that he did not think he would be able to make it, but thought he might be able to on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he said he'd try and come to another one.
Great. John, if you would care to go ahead and begin, or Charlie, whichever one.
I'm going to let John do most of the talking and make side comments as needed. But I'm curious, Jake. So UPTV is now live on ITV3.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
sometimes it takes a while for them to get back to the board on things that have been done.
Yeah.
So that's news to us. But what about the other stations? Parkland, Champaign?
I don't know about the other stations.
Okay.
I know that we have started to look into it, but being that we were transitioning to the new playback system, that was our focus. And then once we get everything installed and configured, we'll move forward with seeing about getting on there ourselves.
Okay. Thank you.
That's good. Good, yeah. Yeah, so thank you, and I'm happy to just take a few minutes just to update you. As you all know, my name is John Gant, and I'm the chair of the board for the UCDB not-for-profit. And Charlie is one of our board members, and also we've got an executive operations team, and so Charlie and I are part of that team as well. We've transitioned to running the day-to-day through our board as well. So there's been some news, obviously, that UCDB is in a situation where our partner ITV3 has notified us that they are being acquired by a company called Countrywide Broadband. So Mr. Greer Racklin is the CEO for Countrywide Broadband, and he and I and Levi Dinkla from ITV3 spoke to the City Council on Monday. But my purpose here today is just give you a brief update on the progress here and answer any of your questions. First of all, UCDB is very excited about what's been happening in the market to try and make sure that we can do our job to build out this really world-class network to reach every single household in our community one way or another. We want to make sure to see that fiber passes every single home in our area, and being an open access network, we'd love to see anybody who wants to provide services be able to do that. And so we really want to try and make sure that we adhere to those very important values as well. And our strategy, this is a very important strategy for our cities because it's a three-legged strategy to really enhance digital inclusion. The first is access. So we're leading the nation in the fact that our strategy for digital inclusion focuses on building a fiber plant so that we can actually make those high-speed broadband connections. The other two legs are around digital literacy and then building applications to take advantage of the advanced features of the network as well to really drive innovation and economic development and those types of things. So we've been working on that as well. And so we're at a point now where we've been notified that our partner ITV3 has accepted this opportunity to be acquired, and there's a due diligence part. And technically, the cities actually have the right of first refusal on this. So both cities have asked the not-for-profit to do the due diligence for this deal. So our role is to collect as much information as we can, research all the information that we have, research what are all the options that we have, so the cities can then be informed, and then the cities then, through their own decision-making processes with the city councils, will make a decision on whether or not they'd like to exercise that right of first refusal. So we're in a phase, this due diligence phase now, where we're collecting a lot of information from Countrywide Broadband and its partners to better understand what their strategy, what their vision is for our community as well. So we're doing that right now. And then we will prepare reports that will go to the cities, and then they can then exercise their rights of first refusal. So we're doing that, and it's a great deal of work actually to try and understand this deal, understand what it means for our community, and also to try and look at what are all of our options. One of the things that's changed quite a bit from the UCDB grant period to where we are now in the last 2.5 years is that the financial markets have changed significantly. There are a number of firms that are now providing capital for companies that are interested in building out broadband networks. The economics around the model has changed quite a bit as well too. So we didn't have this opportunity 2.5 years ago to really say, hey, what other firms are out there, what other companies are out there to provide. We're at a point now where there's more opportunity to talk with folks. And actually to talk with them and see what their vision would be for doing this, what the costs would be, what the business models would be, and so forth. There have been some other breakthroughs nationally in doing this as well, and so we're looking at all these different models. Our team has been we've talked to probably about 16 different companies just to talk with them about what's happening here and their thoughts and so forth as well. And then at the same time, we're also engaging with Countrywide Broadband to do the due diligence there. And we're looking at their capacity for operating the network, for expanding the network, their financial resources for the network that they've got. They're a team that actually has, the 4 executives that are leading it are very experienced. Greer Racklin, who's their CEO, was the chief counsel for Charter Communications. He also worked on several other large-scale fiber projects in Western Europe and so forth as a chief executive type of officer. Their chief financial officer was a partner for 30-plus years with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Their chief operating officer actually helped build the Highland, Illinois network there as well. And they've got another person, Mike Whitaker, who also has very extensive experience as a chief operating officer as well, too. So they've got a lot of experience with large-scale systems, especially building big fiber backbones and that type of thing. And so that's a very positive thing. The financial markets have eased, and so there's they've got a very good financial partner from Wall Street named Seaport Capital. Very energetic company, very much a fan of broadband, really wants to try and invest in these types of networks and so forth. So that's very positive as well. And so we see many positives here with this, but in our job, we see ourselves as stewards of our network. This network was built from the ground up. As you guys reminded me, the early conversations of building this started right here in the Cable Commission. Many of you were part of different groups and committees and so forth, giving input on what we need to do to build this out and giving good technical expertise about how to do this, which was very important. We've got a lot of input from folks that are just living in our communities that want to try and overcome that digital divide. And so we've got to be very good stewards of this. And so we're taking this task very seriously. We're going through the due diligence. We're asking a lot of tough questions. We're really trying to understand how do we move forward. We know there's some disappointment in our community because when we started with ITV3, it was a big fanfare and so forth. We took pledges to build out. And, and I'm one of those where we just were excited. We were thinking, okay, by next summer we'll be connected and so forth. It wasn't that we're complaining about the other cable providers. That wasn't the issue. The issue is really about how cool is it going to be to actually get a gig to your house and just what can I do with it? And, we don't really know. But being a tech geek, it just sounds cool, and how can we do it? This is my area of research. I spent a lot of time thinking about this all the time, but there were just so many positive things that were there. We had a lot of people that were just expecting it. Of course, the grant-funded areas are going well. We've got people that are connected right now. Our model is really cool that the first people in the nation that were connected to this gig fiber network were actually coming from neighborhoods that are, lower income and so forth. And that's very exciting, and those folks continue to be very satisfied and happy with the network. ITV3 has expanded to provide TV and telephone service over that network as well, too. So those things are really positive, but we're tired of waiting, for this next leg. ITV3 made some very significant investments so that we can get a gig to everybody's place in town with new upgrades to the hardware and so forth. And it's a very advanced network. And now we're ready. We're ready. We want to see this. We know there's a lot of competition out there, which is great. But we want to see this built out. We talk with our neighbors. I'm proud when to be part of UCTB. I'm proud with ITV3, and get the questions. But folks are, really want to see this built out, and so do we. And so we're doing our best to get the answers and the information and doing the due diligence. We want to see this built out as fast as we can and so forth, but we're, at the same time, want to be really good stewards of this network. So, Charlie.
Let me just add two things. It's not only complicated because there's a not-for-profit involved, but there are two levels of, and the cities. The city, in addition to exercising or not exercising its right of first refusal, also has to grant a new franchise agreement with the new company, and NTIA has to chime in on approving the new operator of the backbone. So there are additional hurdles so everything has to be lined up here very carefully. So it's more than just due diligence. There's a lot of hoops to work through. I brought up, some of the stuff that we're doing is under non-disclosure, so I have to be careful. I know that when Dale came on Monday night, you'd received Attorney Fred Stavins' memo to you. It's very similar to what we as city council members received from Jim Simon, but did Jim send that to you as well? I don't know did he send it on to you?
No, he did
Oh, okay.
not.
Okay.
I indicated that we had the information from Champaign. and
Okay.
so,
Yeah, it's essentially the
expect
same.
it's the same.
Yeah, it's essentially the same. So I guess are there any questions with that? I can bring that up as well, and if there are any questions related to what Fred wrote.
I distributed that to, or actually Peter, I guess, originally brought that to our attention, and then I redistributed it to the commission members. Are there any questions that the commissioners have regarding that information?
Yes, I have a question. So is the confidentiality of the sale so that cannot be exposed because it's pending negotiations?
Yeah, let me answer. There's confidentiality agreements in place around proprietary information about how the company plans to operate, the technology it uses, its marketing plans, its financial plans, and so forth. So those things are under non-disclosure agreements, so we can't talk about those very specific things. If their CEO, Greer Racklin, was here, it would be up to his discretion to decide on what he can release and so forth. But yeah. But just the point though, the memo that Fred Stavins shared publicly has the response. So in this process, the due diligence, the first thing we did is that we worked collectively with the entire board and both cities and the university to generate a list of questions. And we sent that to Countrywide and ITV3 to ask them to respond. And you have in Fred Stavins' memo the responses that they provided for us, word for word as well. So that's the, so you do have that information.
Yeah. Thank you. One of the issues that came up Tuesday night at the Champaign City Council was the matter of competition and other companies using the network. I think there were two people who spoke to that at Champaign. And could you go in again here for us to some of the considerations in that matter of IRUs?
Yeah, so a really great question. So on Tuesday night there were two questions about competition, and so it's such a very important topic for our local market. You know, UCDB was built through the grant funding through the NTIA, which has very specific policies around what they call open access, and more technically they define it in terms of interconnection and non-discrimination of access and service over the network. So those are policies that promote multiple providers to be able to use the fiber plant that's been installed. There's a really funny kind of economic problem there where providers also need a little bit of time to try and build out the network. And so the NTIA also has a provision in there that if the IRU is transferred over to an ISP who wants to provide service, they get a small window of time to try and do that where they have exclusive access to IRUs. So we have followed the guidelines that NTIA laid out, and so ITV3 currently in its current contract has a 5-year window. They're coming up on the end of year 2 of that window where they have this exclusive right to 80% of the IRUs that were, or it was the full set that were available of the IRUs. At the end of that time, any of the IRUs that are not used become returned back to the not-for-profit organization, and we can open it up to whoever wants to provide service. Also at the same time, and this is around access to the residential part of the market. So also at the same time, though, if you're a wholesale consumer and want access to the network, they have to negotiate with you access to that, and we set up wholesale terms to be able to do that. Those kinds of transfers also have to be approved by NTIA as well. So these are guidelines that were given to us by NTA that we have to follow. So as we're working on this, even in this current deal, we work with NTIA to make sure that we're complying with all the regulations. It's very complicated as well. I'll tell you from the board's point of view is that we strongly believe in having competition in the local fiber market. The competition is good, and we want to see that as well. We know there's a lot of interest in using it, our network, and we want to be a good steward and allow as much access to the network as as technologically that we could do as well. I think it's very, very important to do. I'd love to see our fiber being used by whomever needs to. We've done some arrangements to help get fiber traffic to different parts of the networks and things like that. We're working with CMS and Illinois Century Network as well too, So that's it's a very important value. We very much believe in having a robust, competitive market. For me, what I find, if you ever ask me what success is in this, it would be the fact that whoever wanted to provide service can get access to it, and whoever needs to get service can get high speed. I don't want to see any kind of walls or barriers on either side, and so we're trying to be very good stewards, and try and promote that as best as we can.
Okay. Let me try to summarize that for myself. So we're basically 3 years away from a sort of open access to IRUs by anyone.
Yeah, that with the current deal.
But
Yeah,
with
with-
regard to
with-
wholesale,
Yeah.
there's an availability at the present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, the effort is, the policies are to try and make the barriers as low as possible. We know there's a lot of disagreement over the policies. There's disagreement over the wholesale pricing and so forth, and we understand that. And part of our job is to figure out how do we make this work. Remember, we're pioneering. This is the first time we've done this. This open access policy that we have to follow from the federal level is also new, and how it was implemented and so forth. And so with that, we know that it's complicated, we know that's difficult, and so if folks come forward and say, yeah, we want to do it, we want to try and find good solutions to make it work. There's certain responsibilities that folks who want to get on the network need to follow certain guidelines so we don't bring down the whole network and things like that. But we also know that there's a choice, and we know that others are saying, we could probably do it ourselves cheaper. And so we have local companies that are actually building their own fiber as well, and even one of the companies on Tuesday mentioned that they were doing that, and that's fine. The cities don't like it because it's a dig multiple times sort of policy, but nonetheless, though, it still helps to make effective competition locally as well.
Thank you.
I got a few questions. One is, what is it, RAU? I wasn't quite sure when you threw that out.
IRU, yeah.
RIU, which refers to?
Yeah, IRU, and it's the, yeah, so what it is, okay. So imagine that when you buy a house with a mortgage, you don't really own it, although you're cutting the grass and you're taking good care of it and painting it and all that kind of stuff, but the bank still has ownership of that house until you really pay it off.
Right.
We're in the same situation. We've built this fiber with federal dollars, so the NTIA, the federal from agency within the Department of Commerce, actually owns the fiber, owns the fiber, and we actually are essentially like the mortgage holders of the fiber. And so the way that you transfer ownership is through these IRUs, and we can transfer basically the right for you to use the fiber for your own purposes. So So that's what they are.
Could you
There's
give
a fancy
the,
definition that I just pulled up here.
yes,
Indefeasible
Indefeasible
right
rights
of use. It's a permanent contract agreement, essentially, and cannot be undone between the owners of a communication system and a customer of that system. So not capable of being annulled or voided or undone. But they're, they have lease terms on them too.
Yeah.
So,
So then-
a 20-year lease, for example, is very typical.
So is it, to my understanding, that NTIA has a guideline within it that says it has to be transferred from one non-for-profit to the other with the specified conditions of the initial agreement of the grant, since it was a big federal grant that I believe they paid 80%, and then each city paid a certain percentage, which again is back on the public, which is a public-owned
Yeah.
network system. And so Countrywide Broadband is a non-for-profit
No,
that has a small margin perhaps of profit just for the maintenance costs and service costs, is it?
Yeah, good question. So to sort this out, no, there's multiple models of who can own the network. So that's also something very pioneering that folks don't realize, that our model is very unique. In fact, we're called upon, our board members and I are called upon to speak and share our model around the country. So we've got this public-private partnership, but really it's a public-public-public-private partnership. And so, it's we've got the city and both the cities and the university, and we spun off and formed a not-for-profit called UC2B Not-for-Profit. So we are an official 501c4 not-for-profit organization. In other parts of the country that have also received the grants, they've got different models of how they've done it. Many of them are also not-for-profits as well too. And so that's how UC2B is currently operating. Countrywide, and then our private sector partner is ITV3, and they are very much a for-profit private sector company. And as you know, their parent company is the family, owns Family Video. Countrywide Broadband is also a for-profit organization. So we would be forming an agreement with a for-profit organization to run and expand the network. And that's a pretty typical model that we're seeing. One exemplar is in Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio, called One Community. They formed a not-for-profit probably 10 years ago to do very similar things like what we're doing with UC2B. And just recently, One Community spun off a private sector company called, just passed me, I forget its name quickly, but they've got a private sector company that's funded through private equity from Wall Street with about $50 million of funding, and they're providing now service through their for-profit company as well. So in our situation, this would be a partnership with a private sector company to build out the network. So any type of agreement will have incentives for them to build out at a certain rate, and any type of agreement also will include our own community values in there, as well too. Because we've got values, that we want to make sure to see as many people get connected, the Community Benefit Fund, and other things around stewardship of the network.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, ITV3 is privately building out 2 homes. Okay, the backbone is publicly owned, though, and now being maintained by ITV3 under the agreement, but it's their money, ITV3's money, that's doing the building 2 individual residences and businesses on top of what was done with the grant several years ago to the grant-funded areas.
Yeah.
yes.
And has there been any exploration for a request for proposals from other companies other than what is this company's name? ITV3?
Countrywide Broadband, that's easier.
Yeah,
To give
great.
an opportunity for fair bidding and fair competition?
Absolutely,
If it is
yeah.
competitive?
Yeah.
We want to get the best price for our money, because sometimes, and it's too often, and I've sat on this commission long enough, that it winds up that the citizens having to pay for any expansions or any cost of packages
Yes.
that we don't really want, but
Right.
in order to get certain channels, we need to get certain packages, or certain companies that cherry pick neighborhoods and don't actually service the entire community. I don't want that in this memorandum of agreement or franchise agreement that the citizens get left out of
Absolutely.
the mix and then are beginning to get charged little by little in that expansion as it goes out. And then there's other people that are tapping to those networks to actually for-profit,
Yeah.
using what we have paid for and what we have sacrificed for and what we work for, and you yourself have worked for all these years.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. It's such an important community value to have this be an open process, to allow us to explore all the various options and so forth. So we have, on Tuesday night at the City of Champaign study session, there were two decisions that were made. The first decision was to continue all of our effort, full steam ahead on the due diligence part, to be as rigorous and complete on that as possible. The second decision was to also do a request for information. So what we envision would be a multi-step process. First would be a request for information. And that would say, hey, here's our UC2B model. We would send out a request asking other providers to share their thoughts and ideas for how they could come in and operate with our model and with our network, with us as a partner to do that. So there would be a request for information period to do that. If in the responses, and we would also ask them to financial business models and so forth. So if in the responses we see, first of all, they're going to be very helpful for us in our community to learn and what are different models for doing this, which is valuable, extremely valuable. The second thing is, if we see enough firms say, yeah, this is feasible and this would work, we could go to that next step, which would actually be a request for proposal, which would be the more significant step in asking very detailed questions about how you would do it and so forth. And then we could then decide about letting a contract if that's the option we want to do. Now, the cities play a very important role in doing that. The board, the UCDB board would run an RFI, would collect all the information and so forth. But we would then, it's as if we were the staff to both cities, and then the city procurement process and open meetings process would kick into place to get input into how to do that. And so we respect that process very much. And we've actually have, this is the funniest thing because first we didn't know what was happening. When we were planning, we were actually working on the Community Benefit Fund. We were working like how to get this thing out for the spring and so forth. That's what we were thinking. And the next thing you know, this happened. So we had to work probably at 4 things all at the same time. So we have developed an RFI that has been shared and got a lot of input on and so forth. And if and this goes to the next step, there'll be another public comment step to give us more input on that as well. So we've got a lot of things actually ready to go, and while we're trying to do the due diligence all at the same time.
And then that's why NTIA is making sure that the other legs of the agreement, which would be not only the build out, but the digital literacy
Yes.
component, which has to deal with the Community Benefits Fund.
Yes.
Which is an amount that is basically placed in escrow, I would imagine, because
Yes.
it will gain interest.
Yes.
So that grants could be written towards that funding to gather computer software for the Don Moyers Boys Club and other public
we could-
entities.
Just real quick though, but what bank do you know is paying interest these days?
I chew bubble gum and they charge me interest.
They charge you, but who's paying good interest these days? Yeah, absolutely right. That's what the CBF is. It's going in each month. We get a check. In fact, ITV3 is, I think they're 1 or 2 months ahead. That was one good, nice thing working with them. They are always way out in front on their bills and so forth. And so yeah, the money is accumulating. as well. And we are also using it to leverage other grant funds, which we've received too.
So
Yes.
that will be written in a memorandum of
yeah,
understanding, so when that
absolutely.
transfer occurs,
That's in the
that doesn't
current,
get lost
it's in
in
the
the
current
shuffle.
agreement, and
Okay.
that current agreement has to be honored. Essentially, the current agreement that we have with ITV3 would move to the new company in its entirety, unless we negotiate something different.
Right.
The thing is, right now, that Community Development Fund provides $50,000 a year for the first 3 years and $25,000 for each of the last 2. So it's a total amount of only $200,000. But it serves as leverage. And John has already gotten us one other grant that will be used to develop some apps in the community. So it's a combination of things. So, you know, you get a little bit of seed money here, and you can go apply for some money elsewhere. So hopefully, though right now it has only a 5-year window, we can build it into something that would keep going beyond the 5 years.
And then I
But
would
right now, that's all there is.
And then I would imagine as you begin to build out, you build out from the most needed communities that are still in the dark ages because there's a digital
Yeah, well,
divide.
technically,
in
yeah,
certain areas that
well,
already have
technically,
access.
there are 11 or 10, 11 grant-funded areas
Okay.
represented the majority of those communities as measured by the U.S. Census and so on. There's still some areas of the
Okay.
community that are underserved. But they're
checking.
next to, yeah, but they're, you know, so they're next to wealthier neighborhoods or whatever, so they don't get counted quite the same way. Or they didn't meet the, there was a survey that John's team ran early on in terms of figuring out where those grant-funded areas were going to be. So in some ways, and this goes back to what John said earlier, we're ahead of the game in that we have fiber in the ground already in many of what would be underserved neighborhoods. So it's easier to bring in a private partner like ITV3 or somebody to say, you know, go build the rest, because the rest of the community can afford to put the fiber in the ground. That's one way to think of it. So this public-private partnership is being copied in several other places around the country. Places like Chattanooga, Tennessee, they got their money, and they piggybacked it on their electric system. They already owned a utility. So cities, communities that already have a utility system, used to running a utility system, you know, they've piggybacked it on there. Champaign-Urbana decided not to go that route. We don't have a utility other than the UC Sanitary District, which, you know, is sort of a community utility. You could think of it that way. We could have run the fiber down the sewer pipes. It would work, right? You know, except when you go to,
Yeah, there's special
Yeah.
robots for that, actually.
Yeah, there's a group in Oregon that does that.
yeah, I mean, so I mean, that would have been one utility model we could have used. But, you know, but the community, the two city governments chose not to go that route. They wanted to they want to try this private-public partnership. That's where we're at. New versions of that are out there, and that's why, you know, if the cities decide to go further down that route, they're going to have to exercise their right of first refusal and find a new partner or whatever, or develop their own utility. But it won't be cheap.
I didn't mean to hijack the meeting, Dale.
That's
but I
fine.
have one more question.
Go right ahead.
That is burning, which is the reason why we're all here. When would you all begin to carry the PEG channels? I hear that there's an issue with the nodes and connecting to the nodes.
We got one. We got
Pardon?
one.
Let's hit replay, beginning of the meeting, we got one.
What was that?
We
I'm
got
sorry.
one.
Oh, we got
And
one.
in fact, the franchise agreement does call for them to carry that out. I think they dropped the ball on it.
Yeah.
They told us something Monday night, but they were totally wrong. We've gotten an apology.
Just a little glitch.
Yeah, we've gotten an apology, and as you can see, they're now quickly remedying the fact. So that's why I said, you know, I want to know if Champaign is on and where the others are as well. So I suspect we will see them very shortly. And I emailed Diane Marlin, because I know she's been really bugging me about it. And I emailed her, I'm not being rude here, but I'm trying to find out if she's got. I asked her to check her TV if she's there.
Hello.
Yeah. On the PEG channels thing, it's they're moving expeditiously to get it done. If I were to look at my email, because I've been copied now on emails about this, there's a ton of stuff that's happening to get it all done and all rectified as quickly as possible. In talking with the head of ITV3, Levi Dinkla, he's made a commitment to get this done. And they're really knocking it out very quickly. And I was really pleasantly surprised to hear the announcement at the beginning of the meeting that we've got one channel on. I know that they're meeting with the university to get WILL on. They're meeting with Champaign to get them connected. And this is happening in real time for us. So it's very exciting to see it happen.
But no word from Diane.
So you don't really need a head nod from us because it's too early on in these first phases, right?
A head nod?
I mean, head nod saying go for it,
Oh,
move forward. I don't think it's really within our purview.
yeah. Well, I appreciate the cable, your role of the Cable Commission, and for me, it's very important to have your input. Even some of the things you raised already, with the PEG channels, with competition, those are very important things for us. How this is going to work, and so forth. And so, those things are very important. So I'm happy to continue coming to give you updates and so forth as well. And so you guys, again, with this being born out of here and so forth, I think it's very important. So I don't know what's within your purview or not, but I'm happy to share what information we can to keep you posted.
Thank you for coming out and sharing all that information. Appreciate it.
One of the things I'd like to add too here is that the sooner we can get this settled, the sooner we can see crews back out there working on the streets to expand the network we have. So, we have an early spring, and I was hoping there'd be crews already out there digging, but they aren't. They're installing in the existing sectors that they have, and they have expanded they have modified their equipment so they can expand into the grant-funded areas as well, and they're bringing that equipment in as we speak. So they will be able to add new customers in essentially the 15 sectors where they currently exist. But I don't think we'll see new construction until we get the steel settled.
Yeah. So there's I respect your time.
Go right
but
ahead.
There is a second important thing that you can help with. For some reason, I went the long way home and I saw the new, there's a new water tower, and it says the heart of innovation. There's a new thing now saying Urbana-Champaign is the heart of innovation. And it's very important because that aligns with what we're doing here with UC2B. The other part that we're doing is that we're part of US Ignite and also Next Century Cities and other groups, national groups, that are looking at what do we do with this gig? We've been dreaming big about what we can do with it. Now we want to see it happen. So we know obviously it's very important making sure that we get the connections to people's homes. That's vital. That's essential. We want that to be robust. We want a good community benefit fund. We want folks just using this in their everyday lives. We don't want any barriers there. We also want to look at the next step. That's innovative in and of itself. But then the next step about what else can we do? What are new models? What are new approaches? What are new applications, services, and things like that? And so with the US Ignite and these other grants that we're getting, we're going to be convening groups to come together between the university and our communities to say, here are the big problems in our communities. What can we do to leverage technology to try and address that? It could be anything and everything around that as well, too. And maybe this will be a good place to come and talk about the progress of that as well, and have you guys come to these meetings, help us to just, whoever's interested, because we really want to continue to see that grassroots types of innovation that have really spawned so many cool things that have come out of Urbana-Champaign as well, to continue us to be, as they say, that heart of innovation and that leader nationally in trying to do that. And I want to do it with the Urbana-Champaign thumbprint that's behind UCB, where we think about these ideas not to be exclusive to certain people, but to be inclusive as everybody in our community. So I want to see, like they're doing in different schools with the coding that they're doing and so forth, and working these maker spaces and things like that. I want to see more of that type of approach for accelerating innovation in our community as well. We've got wonderful resources, but we've got something special that we're reaching to folks who haven't been playing and participating in developing the applications, envisioning for the future, and things like that. The barriers for doing that have really dropped, and I want to see more of an inclusive process to make that happen. And if, I could see, and I would love to have you, everybody's shaking their head, so I know these are values you care about as well, too. And so we want to do that. I see Sanford Hess over here as well, and, he and I met because I was doing some talks around e-government and so forth. So that's another place where we'd love to see innovation happen, with leveraging, the really cool data and so forth that the cities are generating, so it can really make a difference in people's lives and so forth. And it's going to take our community to do that, to bring folks together so we can do it in very innovative ways and do it in a way that not only serves the needs here, but is also an important national model, so we, for economic growth and allowing people to prosper in everything they want to do.
Yes. As I look at the charter documents from the city for the Cable Commission, we do find elements of such as identifying community telecommunications resources, both financial and advisory, encouraging public-private cooperative relationships in telecommunications. So that is an area which the Commission does have an interest.
That's great, because many of these grants they want to see those kinds of partnerships because they want to see the money being spent to really make an impact, not just here's something cool, but they want to see what difference is it making in the schools, what difference is it making in the libraries, what kind of new businesses, new ideas, who's new to come to the table, the technology table. So we could partner in doing that as well.
Peter, did you have?
I think there's also some stuff about innovation in that.
Yes,
in the
there
last
is.
few items.
Yes,
And,
there is.
It's very much in our purview. On the topic of purview, so there's a couple aspects of this which are definitely within our purview. One of them is the fact that there is a franchise transfer, and we're kind of the public arm of the cable franchise review system. So we're supposed to make sure that any franchises granted and changes made meet the needs of the public. In addition to the cities keeping track of their own, both kind of the city government interest, but also the public interest. Also, we're the cable television and telecommunications commission, and the FCC recently determined that internet is now telecommunications, and so we really should be advising the cities on what to do to maximize the benefit of modern telecommunications to the community. And the stuff that you're talking about, these kind of next generation uses of it, is exactly the kind of stuff that it's why I got involved in the commission, was to try and foster those kind of next generation uses here. I'd also say that I'll use this as an opportunity to invite you to have further either come back here or have other conversations about this stuff. We'd really like to see a way of having things like the Community Benefit Fund be a multi-provider. We're a multi-provider body here. We're not just, it's ITV3 and Comcast are our two direct people that we interact with because they're direct city franchisees, but we see that AT&T is also here, and we'd really like to see, there's a new FCC Lifeline thing where you'll be able to use $10, low-income families will be able to use $10 to help pay for broadband. And we'd really like to start seeing things like the Community Benefit Fund be something that all the providers either pay into or somehow advancing the idea of digital inclusion on a broad basis. And we'd love to have UC2B's input and participation on making that happen.
Yeah, we're happy, of course, to do that. Just a couple quick comments. On my daytime hat, I'm a professor at U of I, and I am the founding director for the Center for Digital Inclusion. So I've been looking nationally at this. And so part of what we've been doing with Community Benefit Fund is that we have a subcommittee who's looking at how to make it a really robust model so that it can be multiple folks can participate in it and make it an open, just like open access in a way for Community Benefit Fund. Because I think we can get a lot of synergies by working together. I think we all share the same common goal in our community of expanding digital inclusion. So we want to do that. as well. We're very open to that. And so, yeah, that we can have further discussions about how to do that. In the telecommunications role, like with the FCC and so forth, I've written a couple of comments on both the modernization of E-rate and then also the Lifeline program, and met with them about both as well. And I think there's a lot of ideas there that are pretty good. They're very good, but I think we can do better.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to localize those types of programs. And we've got a really special situation here where I've even proposed using our network as a demonstration of a new model for community benefit fund to the FCC and so forth. And when we want to do this thing where we get everybody connected in schools and so forth, and we want to see where things break so we know how to fix it. So that when our kids are in school and they've got the latest technology and so forth, they can get it, stressing the teacher, because there's not enough bandwidth and so forth. And we got to look at the practical realities of how do we do this. And I think we can be a leader in trying to figure out good solutions to these problems as well. And I'll tell you this, and I'll say it on the record, I'm on a board that oversees Google has a digital inclusion fund. And so I'm on the board that oversees that. And I went to my first meeting, and I'm on, we did on the phone, and someone said, who's received one of the Digital Innovation Fellowships, said, yeah, we've got this money and so forth, and, everybody keeps on talking about there's some small city in the Midwest that's got a community benefit fund that we need to be looking at. And I said, oh, yeah, I think I know the city. So even though, we're the folks that were behind it early to get this developed, were very visionary in what they wanted to do. They talked with a lot of folks. They went, all across our community to really put together something that's very innovative. And so we want to continue doing that as well. So. No, well, and we have put things on hold on when this will be announced until we get the deal resolved with our partner, on how this is going to go forward with the acquisition. For the very reason is that we're expecting our partner to continue to be at the center of doing this for us, with us as well. So, and then the other is the fact that our board is a group of volunteers, and we have day jobs, and we're running out of time, and we're spending an immense amount of time on this as well too. So, but and thirdly, just to know that it is your comments are very important to us. We've been working those into our discussions with going forward as well too. So. So expect to see, we're hoping that we'll be making announcements of a much more robust community benefit fund that will go much longer than the 5 years that we've already agreed to.
So, Dr. Gant, thank you so much
Yeah.
for your time and coming, and Charlie as well. Kind of an exit question opportunity. So, what are the dates for the next steps? I mean, we have an upcoming meeting on, let's see, July 21st.
Okay.
Is the next meeting of this commission?
If I could, I think if the commission wishes, we could have a special meeting for Mr. Racklin to appear. He indicated a willingness to do so, or to meet with one or two members of the commission, if that were preferred.
We can do a study session.
Study sessions? Is that the sense of the commission?
And really open it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be
Okay.
great to
So,
hear from him.
what are the dates that you're working towards in terms of the sale documents, and what kind of timing would work with those dates?
I can't announce any particular dates. This is a very fluid situation, and so we don't have particular dates. And as well, we're working as fast as we can, and we can update you on dates once we get to those things. Those are things that are also being negotiated at the moment as well too. As well. So if you have a study session, I'm sure you can reach out to Mr. Racklin. He'll be happy to come, and I know I'll be happy to come as well, and it'll be good.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Andrew?
Go ahead, Andrew. No, go ahead. Mine's too wet. I already wrote it down.
All right. You said 20 years. I want clarification on this 20-year thing. So is it if a company, whether it's the new ITV3 LLC or whomever, builds out fiber into my neighborhood, but maybe doesn't bring it right to my house,
Yeah.
do they then control that for 20 years? Is that what you're saying?
No, we're not saying that. So the 20-year thing was in reference to the UCDB network itself. So what was funded through the grant-funded process, the NFP has that for 20 years through the way that the agreements are set up with NTIA. We are looking for a partner who then, of course, if we were going to be operating it for 20 years, it would be great to have a partner that could make a commitment for 20 years. But we're not setting up our agreements in that type of way. The current agreement really has a milestone of a 5-year build out. And the reason why is that if they're underperforming, then we want to say we want to go in a different direction. There's many benefits of that. One, the time pressure is great. But secondly, it's amazing, like I said, in the last 28 to 30 months, how much the market has changed, let alone the technology. On the technology piece, when ITV3 built, when they came to us we made the agreement with ITV3 originally, they had one model technology that they were going to use. By the time they went to the market to go actually procure it, 2 generations had passed. And so now it worked to our favor where we've got the fastest thing going in the country. We're a generation ahead of the Google Fiber cities. Wow. And that's pretty cool. And then the financial markets have changed. So having those kind of time horizons are good. Our public it helps us to be more accountable as well. Okay. But any type of agreement will have performance metrics that will be aggressive to really protect the public's interest. Again, and then secondly, the 5 year is also the exclusive window for the fiber to the home piece of it, and we think it's important to get that opened up for the other providers to use the network as well. So,
and just to follow up, some of the questions that were answered were, okay, you'll know more about maybe what we have in mind when you refuse to purchase back in other words, a lot of proprietary information, and perhaps you can't speak to that, but I think one of them was, are you going to offer Amazon, Netflix, and so forth? And they're like, we're not going to say until you give us the license to go forth. Did I get that right? Or am
we're not the network provider, but I can say this, and you're talking even with the current ITV3, the good thing about them is that they want to be as competitive as possible in their offerings. And what I really appreciate about ITV3 is that they worked hard to really get good deals to get services here. And they were also looking at what other things can we do with the network that are aligned with our values in our community as well. And so that's part of the reason why we want to have this open dialogue and communication with the prospective new partners, with folks who are doing things from day to day. Because, you think about, in just from the first round, just talking with community, we understood then when you look at network traffic, Netflix made a difference. So they've set up a Netflix, local, server here in town. The way that we do the search engine is tuned locally and so forth. We want to see more of those types of innovations. So the innovations that, it's not some, yes, it's important about what channels are offered, the speed of the network and things like that. But it's also about having a partner that's saying, hey, look, we want to be innovative on how we set up the architecture of this network so that it serves our community well. And we want that to be highly localized as well. So, and part of our questions with the perspective, with Countrywide, is getting a sense of their willingness to look at things in that way. And these folks are have strong technical backgrounds, and they get that. And that's very exciting when you have those kind of conversations, because they're very much, we find a lot of common ground, thinking about it down, when we talk about, the different layers and then the different architecture and so forth. It's not the superficial conversation about, oh yeah, we're going to get a gig everywhere. It's, let's be real. How do we really get the architecture set up, on there? Because, you look at our board, we've got the CIO of the university who, this is his day job. We've got the director of networking, that's her day job, to think about those kinds of things. We've got CIO of Wolfram, and he's trying to tune things for high-end research and so forth. So we're asking really tough, critical questions at that level, because we get, how this thing is architected and so forth. And same thing with people in our community. And so, you know, we want to be able to do that.
Thanks.
Did you have one more?
Yeah, it's a good
Oh, you
point
got
to end
more?
on.
I
Innovation.
thought you told me this was a 5-minute
Yeah,
thing.
real short and simple. It's a self-interested one.
You got-
Speaking about innovation, has technology advanced enough so that we could stick a node, a Wi-Fi connector, a router, or some kind of connectivity so that I don't have to build a cable right into the trunk line, where I could just purchase I was going to say Best Buy, purchase a router where I could wirelessly connect to the trunk line and still get fiber connection. One, it will say will be cost savings for the citizens that get connected to that trunk line, and cost saving for you to route out.
So let me answer your question this way. Part of our due diligence is finding a partner who's willing to take great, bright ideas from our community and figure out how do we do this. We know we'd love to see the more robust competition in the public Wi-Fi connections. It's great. You know, Peter Folk's company it's cool when you walk around and you know I need to get some Wi-Fi quick. Oh, I'm near a Volo spot, right? That's cool, and we want to see more of that. You know, we see Xfinity has got a really creative model for doing that as well. And people like yourself have interesting ideas. So we want, part of our due diligence is finding a partner that's willing to look at these ideas and to figure out how do we make it work. And, to look at broadband as a model of abundance instead of scarcity. Because remember, when you look at telecom policy, up until this era, always looked at the scarcity. There's only so much throughput that we can get on copper, et cetera. And we got to manage the scarcity of that resource. And this is flipping the switch, saying, wait a second, this is an abundant resource. We can scale it even more if we want to. And so our thinking has to change dramatically with this. And so having a partner that's saying, I get the abundance picture, and I'm willing to also work with the local community to co-invent new ways of doing things so we can get better coverage, better access, is the kind of partner that we want. And those are the kind of questions that we're asking. It's not, can we just get more fiber, but it's like, can we really leverage it to really make a big difference?
Because I know a lot of the rural communities are looking definitely.
Yeah,
at
they are. We were
Champaign,
just
Urbana
talking about that.
To be able
Yeah.
to link up to
There's-
that.
Across my desk today came an announcement or some information from Next Century Cities talking about a Minnesota rural community that has done just that. They've got a mix of fiber and wireless. I need to go read it. I mean, I just saw it minutes before coming over here.
okay.
But as I thought about it, I said, we've got this backbone of 7 rings. I do a bike ride that hits all the Casey's in Champaign County. It's 125 miles. Okay, yeah, we do it in a single day. You should join us sometime. It's fun. But if you think about that, you know where all the Casey's are. There are 12 of them, and only one of them there's only one in Champaign-Urbana. It's right down the road here in Urbana. So those 11 are in the rural community. The biggest 11 communities in Champaign County. If you were to run a ring, connect, basically in similar fashion, it's 125 miles roughly. Or maybe it's 2 rings, each half that size, and then you hang the appropriate wireless stuff off of there. What can you do with that? Exactly. So what has Minnesota done in this mix of fiber and whatever? You get into the dense communities that we have. You've got buildings here, you've got buildings there. People have tried wireless, and people keep talking about wireless as the solution, but it hasn't come. Fiber is here. Fiber we know works. And as somebody who is connected to IPv3, it is very nice having 1 gig. I will tell you that. I am enjoying it.
I'm just so far from that trunk line. I said I'll never get hooked up.
Yeah, well, I was 150 feet from the original cable that Bill DeJarnette built along Nevada, and I kept threatening to go out there with and dig my own connection to it.
pretty
yeah.
cool.
So, and that was years ago. So yeah, it's but so far, I want to see what wireless can do. But yeah, it makes great hotspots. But can you do an entire city? Maybe. We had and I don't know if that service still exists, maybe Peter knows, there was a service that ran off of grain elevators for a number of years, and, you know, I don't know what's happened to that. I know that there's satellite downloads, and there is what is it, Frontier, that serves a lot of, a lot of rural communities. So there's stuff out there.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much, Charles.
Thank you very much for coming with us, to talk with us today.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Moving on to audience participation. Well, I don't see any other members here, the public. So we'll move into unfinished business, which would be our annual report, which consists of 2 years' worth of reports, which are primarily or solely a compilation of the annual reports of the PEG channels. Is there any discussion from the commission on that?
I would like to thank the effort of pulling this together. It's appreciated, Dale, and everyone else who participated to get caught up on these sort of administrative duties, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think to make this a complete report, we need basically a cover letter.
A cover.
And we need the reports from the two operators, or from Comcast. I guess we don't need AT&T's technically.
I was, technically we do, but I was thinking it unnecessary, as those reports go directly to the two cities and then come to us, so the two cities have already seen those reports.
Oh, okay. Then a cover letter that refers to them and
Yeah.
says you've received them on
Yeah.
paper covers.
Okay. I will do such. Is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The report is approved. We move on then to commissioners' comments. Does any commissioner wish to comment? No, really? Then, I guess we are set for the next, Peter?
Do we need to do something about
Oh,
the
yes,
meeting?
yes, we do. I will make contact with the CEO of Countrywide Broadband and try to find a time which is agreeable with him, and then see if I can match that up to the commissioner's availability and to space, and set up a study session.
I'll also use commissioner comment time to talk a little bit for the benefit, to some extent, of our ITV3, or of our UC2B, not specifically our ITV3, but our UC2B guests, about some of the stuff that we've talked about doing in the past with regard to kind of dog and pony shows and bringing to public. One of the values of this body is that these meetings are recorded, and we have a lot of experience with the PEG channels, and so we have plans but not yet executed for doing things to show people what they can use with their current connectivity, and things like showing what TV options are available, including all the cable companies and Netflix and Hulu and Sling TV, and update, kind of using this venue to update the public on that kind of thing. If there are things that UC2B is doing with regard to the apps that you were talking about, that kind of thing, I would love to have a session that even if they're still in their infancy, have you bring in demo version, or talk about what you're trying to do with that, and possibly even get the public to get in contact with you. Use this forum as an opportunity to kind of promote those kinds of things as well. And if you have any other things that you think of that the public would benefit from either being walked through or being brought to their attention about next generation technology, we'd love to hear about it and consider having a session or something like that, a study session showing that kind of stuff.
So,
Sure.
Yeah, I know that this is your comments, just want to respond. And yeah, the answer is absolutely thumbs up, totally yes, as well too. And we can go in more detail about the kinds of things that we're doing. But just quickly, we're part of this group called US Ignite Smart Gigabit Communities, and that's one place. We've got another grant with a new program we've developed called the Illinois Digital Innovation Leadership Program. We're working with the CU Community Fab Lab as well. So we've got lots of different ideas and things to demonstrate and so forth. And we're getting a grant funding to be able to host those events on a monthly basis.
Cool.
As well. And so let's plug in, have you guys partners is doing that, and let's use this platform. So, yes. Yes,
good.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
And that's all I got.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments?
I wanted to thank Chris for taking notes today. Excellent job.
Yes?
You're welcome.
And Dale, you've done a great job.
Oh, thank you. With that, then, our next meeting will be July 21st of this year at 3:30 p.m. here in the Urbana City Council chambers. Charlie?
And from Diane Marlin, I just tried it, it works. Channel 6.
Oh, well, wonderful.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so you guys are live on Channel 6 on ITV3.
Okay. Oh, so she hooked up.
And on that happy note, I will declare this meeting adjourned.